Alright, today's lesson is basically we're going to take all of the 9 exponent properties that we've learned about and we're going to put them all together. There's 12 examples to this, so we're going to simplify expressions containing integer exponents. Go ahead and write down number 1. It says into the third, parentheses, into the second power, parentheses, to the fourth power. So we're going to be using multiple properties today. The first one we're going to look at for number 1 is the power to a power. So that's property number 5. It says if we have a power raised to another power, we can multiply those exponents. So this is into the third, into the second times 4, or 2 times 4 power. So that's into the third, into the eighth, because 2 times 4 is 8. Then if you look, we have 2 ends. So we have the same base, and they're being multiplied. Anytime we have the same base that are being multiplied, we can add their exponents. So this becomes n to the 3 plus 8 power, which is n to the 11th power. Okay, I figured it worked. But again, make sure you have everything for number 1 written down before you move on. Your final answer is n to the 11th power.
All right, number 2, you have 10w squared over 5w to the 6th. The first thing we're going to look at is the fact that we can go ahead and divide our 10 by 5 or simplify, reduce that fraction, and that's going to give us 2 over 1 or 2. Then we're going to look at our property, which right here is property number 7, a to the m over a to the n equals a to the m minus n. And we have our base w here. It's the same on the top and the bottom, so we're going to subtract this 6 from the 2. So it's going to be w to the 2 minus 6. Which is going to give us w to the negative 4. Now we're not done here because we still have a negative exponent, so we have to figure out how to make that negative exponent happy and positive. So we're going to flip our w to the 4 to the bottom, to the denominator of the fraction, and it's going to be 2 over w to the 4. Be careful not to flip the 2 because it doesn't have a negative exponent. Make sure you have that down.
Alright, number 3 says x to the 5th, parentheses, xy, in parentheses, to the second power. So the first property that we're going to use here is we're going to look at those parentheses and use property number 6 that says everything inside that parentheses gets taken to that power. So both the x and the y are going to get taken to the second power. So we have x to the 5th times x to the second, y to the second. Then we still have 2 x's there. So we can use property number 4 that says if we're multiplying with the same base, we can add the exponents. So this becomes x to the 5 plus 2 power, y to the second. We can't add in the y to the second because it does not have the same base as the x. So we say x to the 7th, y to the second. We know that we're finished here because there aren't any 2 x's or 2 y's or negative exponents or anything like that. Make sure you have this copied before you move on.
All right, number 4, you have open parentheses, d over c, close parentheses, raised to the negative 4. The first thing we're going to look at is property number 9, where we have our negative exponent here outside the parentheses. So everything inside is being raised to that negative power. So to get that 4 to be happy and positive, we're going to flip our fraction, and it's going to give us c over d to the positive 4. Now we're going to look at property number 8, and that 4 outside of the parentheses applies to everything inside the parentheses. Everything inside is raised to that power, so it becomes c to the 4 over d to the 4. Because my c and my d are not the same variable or the same base number, that's as far as I can go, and that is my final answer. Make sure you have that down before you move on.
All right, number 5 says parentheses 4s over 8t, all raised to the 3rd power. So first of all, we're going to reduce that fraction. We can go ahead and reduce the 4 over 8, and it's going to become 1 over 2. Then we're going to look at property number 8 that says everything in the parentheses gets taken to the power. So everything in these parentheses is going to get taken to the 3rd power. So we're going to say s to the 3rd over parentheses 2t to the 3rd. And then we're going to use property number 6, but again, we still have parentheses with the 2t, so both the 2 and the t are both going to get raised to the third power here. So s to the third, 2 to the third, t to the third. And then we can go ahead and change 2 to the third to 8, because that's a decently small number. So we're going to say s to the third over 8t to the third. And that is our final answer for that one. Make sure you have that copied before you move on.
All right, look at number 6. You have q to the 3 over q to the 3. Because my q is the same variable on the top and the bottom, it's the same base number, I'm looking at property number 7 to see what to do here. I'm going to say that that's the same thing as saying q to the 3 minus 3. Pretty sure we learned in kindergarten or maybe first grade that 3 minus 3 is 0, so that gives me q to the 0. Now, I'm not done here because if I look at property number 1, that's what I have. If I look at property number 1, that's what I have. Anything to the 0 power is raised to the 1. So here I have this is equivalent to 1. That's my final answer. Get that down before we move on.
All right, number 7 says 1 over 2 to the negative 3 power. So here we're going to use property number 3. Again, the negative 3 power needs to be happy and positive 3 power. It's on the bottom, so we're going to flip it to the top and say that that is 2 to the 3rd power. And then 2 to the 3rd power is 8, and that is my final answer for number 7. Take a minute, make sure you have that written down before you move on.
All right, look at number 8. You have x to the negative 7 over x to the negative 6. Now, I realize that we have negative exponents, but before we deal with that, let's look at property number 7 that tells me when I have the same base variables or base numbers, I'm going to subtract my exponents. So I'm going to say that x to the negative 7 over x to the negative 6 is the same thing as x to the negative 7 minus a negative 6. When I have minus a negative, it becomes positive. So that's the same thing as saying negative 7 plus 6, which gives me x to the negative 1. Now, I'm not done here because I have a negative sign in front of my exponent, so I have to flip it to the denominator to make it happy and positive. So let's look at property number 2, which says that in order to make my exponent happy and positive, it has to be flipped to the denominator. Now, it looks to you like it disappeared, but every number or variable has an understood exponent of 1 when there's nothing else there. So that's why our 1 disappeared above our above our x. So it is equivalent to 1 over x. And that is your final answer.
All right, number 9 says f divided by negative 2, all raised to the negative 4th power. We're going to first look at property number 9 that says if we have parentheses raised to a negative exponent, then we're going to flip our fraction, and that's going to make our negative exponent positive. So we're going to put the negative 2 on the top and the f on the bottom, and our 4 is going to turn into a positive 4. Then we're going to use property number 8 that says everything inside the parentheses is going to get taken to the 4th power. So we're going to say negative 2 to the 4th over f to the 4th. And it says the negative 2 must be in parentheses. The negative 2 is inside the parentheses here, so the negative 2 gets to, or the negative gets to go with the 2 and be taken to the 4th power. So make sure that there is parentheses around the negative 2 to the 4th. And negative 2 to the 4th power is a positive 16, so it is 16 over f to the 4th. And that is our final answer for this one. Again, make sure you have it down.
Look at number 10. You have open parentheses m squared over 5n, close parentheses, all raised to the 3rd. First property we're going to look at is property number 8, which says that when I have multiple base numbers or variables inside the parentheses and a fraction inside, everything, the exponent on the outside of the parentheses applies to everything inside the parentheses. So I'm going to rewrite my problem as m squared raised to the third over 5n raised to the third, and my m squared and my 5n, notice, are in parentheses. So now this is looking like property number 5. Property number 5 and 6. That says that when I have a power raised to the power, I multiply my exponents. So on the top, we're going to multiply my 2 and my 3. And on the bottom, it says that everything, property number 6 says that the exponent goes to everything inside the parentheses. So it becomes 5 to the third, n to the third, because that is in parentheses. When I multiply my 2 and my 3, I get m to the 6th. And when I take 5 to the third power, it gives me 125. And then n to the 3 stays the same. So I have m to the 6 over 125, n to the third. And that's my final answer. Get this one down before you move on.
All right, number 11 says y to the negative 7th, y to the 4th. First property we're going to use is property number 4 that says if we have the same base and we're multiplying, we can add the exponents. So I'm going to say y to the negative 7 plus 4 power, which is going to give me y to the negative 3 power. Now I'm not finished here because I do have a negative exponent and I still have a property that I can use. So we're going to use property number 2, and we're going to say that that is 1 over y to the positive 3 power. Take a minute, make sure you have that written down before you move on.
All right, let's look at number 12. This is personally my favorite problem in the whole PowerPoint. I have 8, open parentheses, a to the 15 over 12b, close parentheses, raised to the 0. Property number 1 tells me that everything raised to the 0 power is 1. Property number 6 and number 8 show me that that exponent on the outside of the parentheses applies to everything inside the parentheses. So therefore, my 0 applies to everything inside the parentheses, and it makes it all equal to 1. So no matter how many 1s I have in here, 1 times 1 is always 1. 1 divided by 1 is always 1. So my answer is 1.
Alright, so you should now be able to simplify expressions containing integer exponents and basically be able to put all of those properties together and use them. That's the end of your video.
We're going to have you look at some before you go questions. Sorry. We're going to have you look at some before you go questions. Please try these on your own. Try to go ahead and work these out on your own. You have negative 3 over w to the negative 4. And then you have a to the 5th, b to the 3rd, times ab raised to the 4th. Pause the video, take a minute, and work these out before we show you the answers. All right, on the first one, you should have gotten w to the 4th over 81. And on the second one, you should have gotten a to the 9th, b to the 7th. These are the types of problems that we're going to be working in class tomorrow. So if you did not get the right answer and you're not sure why, see if you can figure it out. And if you can't, please bring your questions with you to class when you get here. Thank you for watching. This is the end of your video.